What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake NBA Wise Stream. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013, and I, of course, am from the WiseTake Nation, which you can find on all the social media platforms listed above. A little bit of a later start today for the Wise Stream for a couple of reasons. Number one, lock is a little bit later. Usually we like to get 2 hours in before lock. However, being that we only have 3 games, we don't want to keep you guys on here with a bunch of downtime. We're going to continue to ride the show up until lock to make sure whatever news does come out, we have up to date, though it does look like we have a lot of the information we're expecting already. Obviously, it's the NBA. They don't need to really give you notice. They say they do, but they really don't, to give you notice of any late-breaking information. But it is what it is. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We are a premium DFS content provider as well as a DFS community designed to make you a better DFS player. So if you did find us for the first time, welcome. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you're notified whenever we do go live. You don't want to miss out on any of the DFS content we put out right here on our YouTube channel. And with that said, those of you, you know the drill. The rest of you know the drill. Hit the like button, right? The like button goes a long way. I came in here already seen a couple of y'all already hit it. I appreciate that. That really goes a long way. It really means a lot. And the likes allow us to continue to do the free content. Without the likes, we cannot continue to do the free work. So I like doing this show. I like doing these shows, I should say. I like interacting with you guys, being in touch with the DFS community, and all that shit. So please hit the like button because, like I said, it's what allows us to continue to do this and keep rocking with you guys every single day or every single week, whatever the case may be. We got baseball coming up too. I'm really excited about that. Really good baseball success. We rank really well in NBA and MLB, so very, very excited about all that shit. Appreciate those of you who already hit the like button. Please keep it rolling. Daniel D says that he's here early. What's up, man? Good to see you. Glad you can make it on time. Dante DiVincenzo looking really good on your thing. Absolutely. He looks really good, and we'll talk about that. We did just get a slew of news, right? We know Fred VanVleet is out, but we already anticipated that from the early look. Marc Gasol is out, which should be at no surprise. He just made his return, and it's a back-to-back, so he'll be out. Obviously, Bledsoe has been is considered doubtful, while George Hill's been ruled out. Hence the Dante DiVincenzo love that we will get to. So we only got 3 games. Not going to take us too long. If you guys have questions, I'll take my time and I'll take the time to interact with you guys, which obviously helps make the show more interactive, more interesting, and makes kind of the time pass. So hour 1 here, or I should say half hour 1 here, is with myself. We'll go game by game with the projections as usual. I've made some changes to some of the other games. Not a ton of changes to this first game, but we'll get into it and talk about it a little bit more. I anticipate this game being somewhat popular. Speaking of which, we'll pull up some ownership projections and actually take a look. But anyways, we'll go through the projections. If I see anything I have to change, we will change it here. And then, of course, I'll finalize them on the transition between the second hour of the show when we bring on Paulie and talk some game theory, find out what he likes, and discuss it, right? And again, the most important of that last hour, I think today should be an hour, is that you guys have all the necessary information, all the necessary news to make the right educated decision, right? All right. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this one. As you guys are piling in, the first game, we've got the Charlotte Hornets visiting the Atlanta Hawks. We've got a 222.5 total, down 2.5 points from 225. Atlanta opened up -4. They're up to -5. We know that a lot of their guys have been ruled in, except for DeAndre Bembry. Both teams are working with a day off. It is a 3-4 for Atlanta, their third game in 4 nights. However, both teams are working with a day off, and Atlanta obviously is home. Starting with the Charlotte side, if I can get over there. Devontae Graham looked the best. I'm actually going to resort this real quick. I would like it to sort the right way. There we go. That should resort. I don't think a ton will change for this particular game. But like I said, I didn't make a ton of changes here. A little bit did, I guess. So one thing about this game, I think both teams, while they have centers, Atlanta has Dedmon, Charlotte has Biyombo and Zeller, Hernan Gomez. I do think that both teams prefer to go small when they can. And when I say go small, I mean like Atlanta will play John Collins at a 5, while Charlotte plays PJ Washington at the 5. I think this matches up well for both teams to do that. So I anticipate Graham, Rozier, PJ Washington, Miles Bridges, Cody Martin, with one of these other 5 guys kind of being rotated in and out to be more popular combo, or at least the rotation that we see the most of. Again, both teams like to go a little smaller, that they look for any excuse they can, and they can easily both match up to do that. So if you think about it, I think Miles Bridges could play the 4, assuming that he gets DeAndre Hunter at that point. You figure Cody Martin or Jalen McDaniels, whichever one of these guys they want to rotate in and out, could match up with Cam Reddish at the 3, who I think Atlanta would prefer to play over Dedmon for majority of the minutes. And of course, PJ and John Collins, Rozier and Graham either rotating with Herter or Trae Young. So that's what I anticipate seeing. The Charlotte side of the ball, they're the side that's getting paced up. They're the side, obviously Charlotte plays really slow, but Atlanta plays extremely fast, hence the higher total. We see a Charlotte with a lot of games with like 209, 206 type totals. So this is, for them, a very high total, which means that they're worth taking a look into. I think, like I said, that the main pieces I'd be looking at are that small ball lineup of Graham, number 1, at least on DraftKings at his price. Rozier, certainly a little more attractive on FanDuel at 5'9". But I'm interested in PJ Washington because I think they will go smaller. Matter of fact, I'm curious. I looked at it earlier. I just forget if these guys. Yeah, I mean, 33 minutes against Atlanta earlier this year when these teams played on December 8th. PJ Washington had 33 minutes. Only took 6 shots. Was 3 for 6. Had 13 free throws, though. 12 for 13 from the free throw line at 8 boards. So I do think PJ Washington is probably one of the guys that I lean towards. And I don't mind Miles Bridges. We had that conversation on the early slate. But when looking into it, my one concern with Miles Bridges is his minutes lately have been down. You don't want to necessarily assume that's going to be the case. And I think this is a situation where they could really use him a little bit more. But 27 minutes against Houston, 28 against Denver, 32 against the San Antonio was the last time. For a minute, he was getting 35, 36. But the usage still looks strong, so I'm still good with him as well. I'll probably raise his minutes regardless. But PJ Washington is definitely someone I got my eye on. I don't want to overreact and hype him up too much because I think I'm getting most of my exposure to the other games. I expect this game to be pretty popular, at least some of these ancillary pieces around here. And I think that's good. Maybe I'll try to give PJ a little more, give him like 34.5, give Bridges a little bit more as well. And kind of see what that does. Hopefully we start getting some. I'm not sure if I was even getting any earlier. Let me check what my earlier builds were giving me. Yeah, no, I was getting a good amount of him. The position's pretty weak, too. The position's pretty weak, so I'm content with getting some more of those guys. On the Atlanta side, so from a defensive matchup standpoint, it's a phenomenal matchup for Atlanta. As far as pace goes, Charlotte does play very, very slow. And as you can see, our projections are very pace-oriented. Because that deals with how many possessions. We try to predict the possessions in a game. So for the Atlanta side, they're not really matching up as well based off their price. I think Trae Young has been playing like shit. He's been sick, but he's obviously got the potential to break the slate. He's got one of the higher ceilings. So maybe we need to consider getting at least a little bit more of him. I don't think I'm getting a ton. And we did just get some more value opening up with the Milwaukee situation. And even maybe the Toronto situation. So maybe we give Trae Young a little boost there. Really good matchup for Collins. I don't like the price, but obviously a similar story, right? He's got a pretty solid ceiling. He's been playing really well. His minutes have looked good, and he's playing a Charlotte team that typically struggles against bigs. So maybe we'll want to raise him to a little bit of a better projection. If I put him up to 37 minutes, that puts him right around, 5.05x. Still not great. So I guess in reality, we'd probably want to raise him to closer to 38 if we expected to get any. It's a small slate, so it shouldn't take too much. Kevin Herter, DeAndre Hunter, some of these guys, like their minutes are somewhat maxed out. I'm not terribly interested in them, but they just don't project well for their pricing. But obviously, these are pieces that could play a lot of minutes. I did notice in that one game where Trae Young was out that they are a little deeper than they have been. They got guys like Vince Carter they can work in, Treveon Graham they've been working in. Bruno Fernando, they got Dedmon floating around, so they're not really thin, right? And so some of the rotations kind of put me in a weird place. I think that Cam Reddish, from an ownership perspective, is interesting because, like I said, if they go small ball and match up with Charlotte, then that would mean Cam Reddish should get a lot of time at the 3. So he's one person I kind of have my eye on for the time being. It's hard to project him for anything significant as far as minutes go when everybody's healthy, but I do expect him to play more minutes than Dedmon, though I don't think Dedmon is necessarily in a terrible spot. It's really going to come down to what type of Cam Reddish we see. We've seen him hold higher usage rates, stronger usage rates, and we've seen him kind of do nothing all under the same breath. So got some decisions to make, Mr. Cam Reddish, on how aggressive we want to be with his projection. As far as Dedmon goes, matchup-wise, it's solid. Like I said, I'm just concerned that these teams will like to go small, and that could squeeze Dedmon out a little bit. Like I said, from a matchup perspective, it's great for centers. So maybe we're a little conservative on his projection. I'll raise his minutes up just a little bit and see if that helps at all. Give it a second to populate here. But if I give Dedmon 21.5 minutes opposed to the 19.75 I had before, it's still he's still not really within reach, just not enough. But for tournaments, I'd be fine with it. I would just be shocked if they didn't go. I'd be a little shocked if they didn't go smaller here, and we saw majority of the minutes with small ball from both teams. So it is what it is. Like I said, I expect this game to be somewhat popular, have some ownership. It's the first game. It's the only game that's going at 7:30, and then the other games both start at 9. So it is what it is. If you don't play it, you'll be, you have to be patient. That's really all I can say. All right, let's flip it over to the next. I'll pop in a chat and see what you guys are saying about it. What up, Juice? I see Juice in here. Shout out to the nation. Those of you piling in, please hit that like button if you haven't already. Our boy Jameis says, is there a way to find out how the Bucks' pace changes when Giannis doesn't play? I would think their pace of play goes down, but I'm not sure of it or how to figure it out. The only real way to do that, there is a way to technically do that. I don't think there's a simple tool that's going to do that for you. Jameis, I think what we can do is pull up stats.nba.com, and we'd have to kind of look at what the pace was. Look at the games where Giannis has missed and check and see what the actual pace was of that game. Now, I will say this. The Suns don't play particularly fast. Now, the Suns were extremely efficient last night, but that was a very high-scoring game last night, especially for the Suns. Now, again, they were really efficient. Devin Booker couldn't miss a shot in the first half, everything. So, I do understand, and I do think that the pace last night was pushed, and they kind of had to. They were trying to catch Phoenix off guard in transition because their defense was terrible, and their defense took a huge hit without Giannis. That was pretty evident, right? But they did seem to push the pace. Phoenix is not really a fast-paced team. They have the ability to be, but they really haven't been all season. So I'm assuming that last night that pace was pushed up by these guys. Now, the bigger question is, how does that pace get impacted with Bledsoe there? Not there. Because Bledsoe is a guy that has always pushed. When he was with the Suns, he pushed. I don't think he's ever been on a team that was slow. Bledsoe. With that said, hit the like button, guys. We're going to move on to the next game in just a second. Got a question here from Juice. CK, is there any foul trouble concern against Collins? Absolutely. There's always foul trouble concern. There's foul trouble concern with Collins, and there's foul trouble concern with PJ Washington. So that's definitely a possibility. For me, like I said, just me kind of going into it, assuming that they're going to small ball it up, probability tells me that those guys are these small ball lineups are better to go after. But obviously, if they get into foul trouble, if things don't work out the way they're supposed to, then they're going to have to change the game plan, and we could see some of these other guys get more runs. So there's always that distinct possibility, for sure. But at the same time, they were in this situation before. PJ played well, so we don't want to assume that that's going to be the same scenario today. But foul trouble is always a thing, especially with bigs. It's always a thing. John Collins did not play in that game earlier, so just to be clear, the game earlier this season where PJ balled, Collins did not play. But foul trouble is certainly an issue. It's going to be. Should PJ get into foul trouble, that would lead to more minutes for Zeller and some of those other guys. But I think they're going to prefer PJ as long as he stays out of foul trouble. All right, let's move on to the next game. We've got the Toronto Raptors visiting the Utah Jazz. So we did get some news here as well. We have a 225 total, which is actually the current highest on the slate. Utah opened up -4. They're up to -5 at home. In terms of schedule, it's a back end of a back-to-back for Toronto. However, it is not a 4-6 or a 3 or even a 3-4. It's just a back-to-back. Utah's had a day off, but it is technically a 4-6. We've seen Utah really struggle in this situation. Pretty pathetic, but we've seen them struggle pretty drastically in this situation before. With that said, let's start with the Toronto side. Serge Ibaka looking like one of the stronger plays in the mid-tier. We know that Marc Gasol has been ruled out, so we expect Ibaka to get a lot of run, especially with Gobert down low. Ibaka's been playing really well on this road trip. Ibaka did have 4 fouls the last time Utah played Toronto. 4 fouls in 21 minutes, had a massive usage rate, took 14 shots. I'm willing to take a chance on him. I mean, we don't have a ton of strong-looking plays. He looks like one of them for sure now that the injury situation is cleared up. Norman Powell should be pretty popular on FanDuel, and for good reason. I don't mind getting exposure to him on DraftKings. Just this game in general is kind of interesting to me. There's not a ton that I love on either side, well, aside from like Ibaka looking at it, but I just think this game is going to have some lower ownership. In general, I think a lot of people are going to try to play that first game because it is Charlotte and Atlanta, and they have a reputation in the DFS industry. And it's also the first game going. So like I said, the people that get off of work or are looking to sweat right away after a long, hard day, I think they're going to be most likely to load up on that first game. And then, of course, everybody's going to be playing Milwaukee today, rightfully so. So because of that, I'm interested ownership-wise in Toronto, Utah. And they have the highest total. I think Siakam for a stud is kind of interesting. I don't mind Lowry as a spend-up. On FanDuel, he's really not that expensive at all. I don't really want to mess with the value too much here. I think I'm mainly looking at the starters in Ibaka, Powell. I know Powell is expensive on DraftKings, but I'm willing to overpay in the game stack. But Ibaka, Powell, Siakam, Lowry. If you want to go OG, I'm okay with it. I prefer Ibaka being out to really go OG, but the minutes have looked really good for OG. So if you wanted to do it, I got no problems. But Toronto's definitely a team I have some interest in. On the Utah side, Jordan Clarkson looking like a decent value play for us. We do have Dante DiVincenzo, which opens up, but this could obviously help go along with it. I don't mind Mike Conley at his prices either on FanDuel, really not looking all that great, but on DraftKings, looking fine. And this is a slate where the pricing is a little more strict, so not a lot of guys project well anyway. Even with Conley, we only have Conley at, where is he? 5.6x, which isn't normally that great, but it's only a 3-game slate, so we were still getting a pretty fair amount of him, around 33% or so. So, and that was with Bledsoe in. So with Bledsoe out, we could see that number go up, though I anticipate DiVincenzo taking up a lot of that. So it's a decent spot. Rudy Gobert hasn't been as aggressive lately as we'd like, but obviously matchup-wise, it's a really good matchup. He's significantly bigger than Ibaka and anyone on Toronto's team with no Gasol. Donovan Mitchell can go a little overlooked. I don't mind taking shots on him. His price has come back down. Bogdanovich has played well, coming off an awesome game. Very scoring dependent. That makes me a little nervous. And from a matchup point perspective, feel a little weird about him. Like he's going to be, who's he going to cover? OG? Maybe. He's going to cover Siakam? Maybe. I don't know. I think that we could see Royce O'Neal play a little bit more for those situations for defensive purposes, maybe even Joe Ingles. So, again, Utah, a team where I want to kind of find something to like. And the way things are now, I was getting a good amount of Clarkson. I was getting, like I said, 33% Conley. I was already getting some Donovan Mitchell also. So I was naturally getting exposure to these guys. So I think we're in a decent situation. We'll go on to the next game. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Appreciate those of you who are joining with us late. Better late than never. That's the motto. We got one more game to get to. We'll take a little pause after that and bring on Paulie D, talk some game theory, find out what he's looking at. It's only a 3-game slate. Not a lot going on, but there's still decent contests. There's still money to make. And so we're going to go at it the best way we can because this is what we do. Don't know what else I'd be doing if I wasn't talking to you guys about a 3-game NBA slate. All right. Last game here, we've got the main event, if you will. I mean, it starts at the same time as this Toronto game. Milwaukee visiting Denver. We've got a 221.5 total down from 223.5. Denver opened up -5.5. They're still there. I think that number changes with the Bledsoe news. I'm going to actually refresh this and see if it has. Not yet, but I think it will. I do think it will. So starting with Milwaukee, in terms of schedule, it's the back end of a back-to-back for Milwaukee, a 4-6 as well. Very, very tough part in the schedule. Back-to-backs are hard enough. 4-6s with back-to-backs are hard enough. Traveling, hard enough. You go into Denver, that's just really a shitty spot. However, Denver, despite the fact that they've had a day off, Denver's looked really bad. Barely beat Charlotte. They've struggled. Mind you, it was on the road that they mostly struggled, but they haven't looked great. So I'm not ready to write off Milwaukee just yet. And this is where I think we're going to get some of our value from. Obviously, Middleton in the mid-tier appears to be the strongest play as far as regular options go, assuming this game stays close. He had a 41% usage rate when on the court last night, and that was with Bledsoe there. With Bledsoe off, you just anticipate him taking a ton of shots. You just anticipate him taking a ton. So, obviously, you got to make a decision on how heavy or light you want to go on him. The decision is yours alone. Rolo, what did I just see there? In addition to that, I think that Dante DiVincenzo just became the strongest value play on the board, especially on FanDuel at 4-2. We expect him to start at point guard. George Hill is also out. So I think we'll see Middleton get a chance to run the offense. We'll see DiVincenzo play point guard. Maybe we see Pat Connaughton get more minutes. It's more minutes and usage for everyone, including Ersan Ilyasova, who was a big bust yesterday. He only got 15 minutes despite starting. He could end up starting, and maybe he actually takes a shot. He didn't take any shots, I don't think, in the 15 minutes he played. Maybe he actually takes a shot now that Bledsoe's off the court. They're going to need somebody else to step up. It could be Brook Lopez, who I don't mind. I don't think we can just assume that Brook Lopez was going to get all the minutes. They seem to be reluctant to play him anything big, but would it shock me if he got 30 minutes? No, and I think that the minutes he's on the court, he may be asked to shoot a little bit more. The back-to-back 4 and 6, all that stuff kind of worries me with big men, but somebody's going to have to step up and take some shots. Marvin Williams on FanDuel is 35. A lot of these guys are fairly priced on FanDuel. I just don't like their DraftKings prices. Right. But a lot to discuss. DiVincenzo, though, looking like an extremely strong value play. Wesley Matthews, I anticipate to get some run as well. I guess we can actually take a look and see the on and off tool. We got some time here, so let's actually look at it. Milwaukee Bucks. No George Hill, no Bledsoe, no Giannis. I think that's it. So small samples. DiVincenzo, 23.8% usage rate, 1.1 fantasy points per minute. DJ Wilson, who is available, I don't know how much. I don't think he played much yesterday. I mean, I guess I'm kind of reaching with that one, right? Just want to make sure, because I saw a note on him that he's available. I just don't know. He hasn't been in the rotation. He's available, though. Whatever the hell that means. I don't know why they would. I don't know. Either way, DiVincenzo looking like the strongest. Sterling Brown, Chris Middleton, 39.5% usage rate, 1.92 fantasy points per minute. Ersan Ilyasova, 20.3% usage rate, 1.41 fantasy points per minute. Brook Lopez, 26% usage rate, 1.08 fantasy points per minute. So there's some options. Ilyasova that's interesting. Now, again, Marvin Williams is there, so that can cut into his overall production, but we'll have to wait and see. I do expect Ilyasova to be a little bit more aggressive on the offensive end, and it looks like in the small sample that he's been in this role, he has. So do we raise his minutes a little higher? Right? On FanDuel at 3,600, a little higher would start putting him into your teams pretty substantially. On DraftKings at 4.6, he's only 4.6 because he was popular yesterday. Kind of puts us in a weird spot. But I'll talk about it with Paulie. I'll get some of your guys' feedback. You let me know. It's just a troll spot, right? Everybody stays away from him today, and like with Bledsoe out, that's enough for him to get. Maybe he only gets 20 minutes, but he actually shoots the ball. And actually, he can be a high per minute player, Ilyasova. He can be. But for whatever reason, he's been asked to slow his roll. That's what it seems like to me, anyway. But it is what it is. We'll go on to the Denver side of the ball. So, Will Barton, I still think is in a really good spot. Projects well on both sites. I like him a ton. I'll probably have a ton of him. Jamal Murray, I do like quite a bit at point guard. We just saw Ricky Rubio go nuts on these guys, post a triple-double. So I certainly have some interest in Jamal Murray in this particular situation. Even at an increased price tag on DraftKings at $7K, he'd probably be, him and Barton are my two favorite Nuggets. Paul Millsap could be in a good spot. It's just kind of hard to project when he's going to get it, whether it's going to be him or Grant. It's a small slate, so you may want to take your time and kind of figure out which one you want and actually play him accordingly. The position at power forward is pretty ugly from what I saw. Got a little bit better with Siakam's spot getting a little bit better, things like that, but it's not pretty. It's definitely not pretty. What else do we have here? Millsap's minutes have just been really inconsistent, hard to project. Gary Harris has played better, but we could take a shot on players like Monty Morris and Plumlee if you really, really want to get different. If you really, really want to get different, those are the value pieces you can look at, but it looks like we got some pretty strong ones with Milwaukee, so I'm going to be sticking with the Milwaukee value personally. Is there anything else here? Not without an injury. We need an injury for anything to become to really stand out. Monte Morris playing minutes in the 20s, been a little inconsistent. And there you have it. I mean, fairly straightforward. I think this slate is for a 3-gamer. We're going to expect Milwaukee to be very popular. Expect that first game Charlotte and Atlanta, especially the Charlotte side, to have some ownership. Expect Denver to get some love because of how popular Milwaukee is. And I think, again, that's why I'm so interested in the Toronto-Utah game. Not something where every team is going to have Toronto-Utah, but definitely a situation I want to pay attention to. I do anticipate Ibaka being popular now that Gasol's out. And on FanDuel, I expect Powell to be popular. But in general, even looking at ownerships now, it does look like Chris Middleton should be the highest owned player. Dante DiVincenzo second. I would say Jokic and Trae Young are competing with that. I see Donovan Mitchell up here. That was a little surprising, but I guess it's because his prices come down. But I do see a lot of Charlotte, Atlanta, those two Milwaukee players. Really, Jokic is the only Denver player I see up here. And then for Toronto, I see Ibaka, and then it gets pretty ugly. You don't see a lot of Toronto players until the bottom. So it's an interesting one. It's an odd one. Definitely an odd one. But anyway, guys, hit that like button if you haven't already. Appreciate those of you that have. We are going to take you guys up to lock. Again, there's not a ton to talk about, so if you have questions, go ahead and interact. Put them in the chat. We'll get to them. We'll do our thing. But definitely a strange little 3-game slate. Going to take a pause here, bring on Paulie D. We'll talk it out a little bit more. Try to answer more questions if there are any. But again, it's going to be pretty quick. So don't go nowhere. We'll be right back. You know the deal. Hit the like button if you haven't already. And like I said, we'll be right back. What up, Nation? We are back with part 2 of the NBA Wise Stream. CK013 here. Joined by the GOAT, the true OG. Y'all know him as Paulie D. Y'all can find him on Twitter at Paulie with 8 Ds. Paulie, what's happening?
What's up, man? I was hoping for a better slate, but we got what we got. We got to do what we do.
Yeah, that's it, man. We're gonna do the professional thing, and we're gonna there's money to be made, so we're gonna go after it. But it was disappointing. I'm not gonna lie. When I woke up today, I felt the same way. I thought it was disappointing that we had such a small slate, 3 games. It's been good, man. I know yesterday you had a pretty good day in NBA. I had a decent day in NBA, but a better day in XFL. So like coming off of a day where we had some extra money to fire away, to see a 3-game slate, and not the prettiest 3-game slate, mind you, either. It was a little disappointing,
right.
But it's what it is. What are your overall thoughts, man? I would assume Milwaukee. I'm sure, like you, we're gonna see Middleton and DiVincenzo is like crazy chalk today. What's your approach? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I don't see like much way around fade those guys. Like they're just uber shorthanded, and it's a tough opponent. Like maybe they get smoked so bad that like those guys don't get enough run. Like their coach can do that at times. It is a back-to-back, but more so I think Denver's been struggling as well, and this game probably plays closer than what it should, because Denver just hasn't looked great lately. And I think the Bucks are undefeated, or if not undefeated, only 1 loss with Giannis out. Like I know it's more today, but I just have a feeling they're going to hang in. I think Middleton will kind of do what he does. It's just too many minutes, too much usage to go around. I think there's definitely more there that we'll talk about. But like as an overall on the slate, like I don't have much that's like super creative. I do think, with MME, I'll have some game stacks where I do fade the Milwaukee stuff and stack the other 2 games, or kind of go like heavier on Denver. But at this point right now, it's like, do I do 80% Middleton or 100? That's like where I'm at. And it's like, so how many lineups will I have like where I'm fading that? Not many.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. That's really like the first decision that you have to make is what are you doing with Middleton? DiVincenzo, of course, in the same category, but he's a little bit different, right? It's still speculation. He's cheaper. He's a value play, a little easier to hang your hat on. Middleton, however, on DraftKings is 7-6. So if you're right, if you go underweight and you're right, that's going to be huge for you. You know, if you are wrong,
Sure.
it's going to bury you. So it's a polarizing decision that you have to make right out the gate. And then pick your spots elsewhere. I would assume that the Charlotte side, probably some Atlanta too, but I would assume that the Toronto Utah game, just overall as a game, would end up coming in somewhat low in relative to the Atlanta Charlotte because of the reputations those teams have. I think that obviously Milwaukee is going to be the chalk team because of how thin they are. That may lure some people into the Denver side since they're already working with the Milwaukee players. What are your thoughts on Toronto, Utah? Do you think it's going to come in lower owned, or are you interested, or do you just think, no, I mean, you know, the Milwaukee-Denver game is too good to pass up, or whatever?
No, yeah, definitely interested in that game. I don't know, lower owned. It'll be the lowest owned of the three. You know, the first is Charlotte, Atlanta. It's the first game, and Atlanta's in it, so that'll definitely get ownership. And then obviously Milwaukee will, and because of all the Milwaukee, I'm assuming Denver will get love. Although yesterday no one was on Phoenix, and that's really what set me apart and was glorious. So sure. I wish the slate was bigger so there was like more options, but yeah, I do like that game. I don't know how low owned it'll be though because it's such a small slate.
Yeah, obviously, like on a 3-game slate, like 30% could be low owned. So, relative to the rest of the players, I do think that we'll see some lower ownership there. Minus maybe guy like on like Powell, for instance, has been awesome, but he's 6'8" now on DraftKings. So I don't know how many people are willing to pay that price. I anticipate Ibaka being popular, but outside of that, I really don't think anyone else on Toronto is going to be all that popular. And on the Utah side, when do people ever want to play Utah? Maybe Donovan Mitchell gets some traction because his prices come down. But when does anybody ever want to play Utah?
Never.
Second on sevens. And with that said, we'll do the studs, and then I'll kind of go team by team with you since we have some extra time anyway. So I'm going to ask you for the studs, mid-tier value, even though it's a short slate. But then we'll kind of go like team by team, and I'll kind of ask your opinion and your thought and what players you're looking at, just to kind of kill some time. We'll answer some questions and do what we do. Take it from there. With that said, Paulie, talk to me about the studs. We don't have a ton of them, but how would you rank the studs that we're working with, and how interested are you in these studs?
All right. Where should I cut it off? Like Middleton?
Oh man, I was gonna start Middleton off. I guess there's, I guess we can do it like Siakam.
Down to Siakam.
Yeah, Siakam's what,
okay.
8-7. So yeah, we'll end it there for studs.
Yeah. You want to include Lowry and just go down to 8?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. I honestly don't love any of these guys that much. Like, sure, you got to get Trae Young. He's got by far the highest ceiling on this slate by a lot, and is coming off a couple bad games. So, he doesn't do that very often. Charlotte's terrible. James Harden, they did get smoked, but he did put up a triple-double yesterday. And, Trae Young will probably push for the same. After that, like, it'd probably be Siakam just because of ceiling and ownership, and then, I'm all right with some Collins. I'm all right with some Jokic, but neither of them excite me all that much. It's really Trae Young and then a lot of mid-tier for me, like what I think will be optimal, but Siakam would be my next favorite up there.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't too into the studs, but again, like raw points is gonna matter, and that was kind of my issue. Is there wasn't a ton projecting well at all. Like just in general, I think that on DraftKings we had like DiVincenzo, of course, projecting well, but after that, I think the next best was like a 5.8x for Jordan Clarkson. So it's a weird slate in general. I don't like the studs either, but I may try to incorporate more of them just because. Trying to lock in even a 50 from Trae Young or Jokic, just trying to lock that in could go a long way. But with that said, like pricing, matchup, everything, I'm not crazy about the studs, but I'm not crazy about really anything. Talk to me about the mid tier.
Exactly. So you obviously got Middleton. You got to do that. I don't even know if it's ever failed. I do like Norman Powell. Utah has not really defended scoring guards well lately. I think Jordan Clarkson has a lot to do with that. He's had great usage with no Fred VanVleet, who's already out. And, I don't see why anything would change. He's going to get big minutes with big usage, put up a lot of shots, a lot of threes, and, he gets some peripherals. It's just price probably just not high enough at this point. And I think he'll be one of the more lower-owned players on the slate with legitimate upside. My research has pointed to Bojan Bogdanovic. It was right. The last game, he put up a 41. Just keep going back there until the research says not to. PJ Washington, I like. Jamal Murray from Denver. He's probably my favorite Nugget. And Marvin Williams at 5K. He's DraftKings was smart, priced them up. Got 26 minutes yesterday. Bledsoe was there and, didn't really do all that much and got to an 18. I think today he's going to be forced to do a lot more. So I'll play some of him as well, but not a ton. I mean, I like Serge Ibaka as well, but my favorites obviously are Middleton and then Powell, Jamal Murray, and Bojan.
Bojanovic, talk to me about the value, Paulie.
All right, so DiVincenzo's just de facto chalk. It makes a lot of sense. They don't have many ball handlers, and this kid's good. He was probably somewhat in play anyway. I got my eye on Dwayne Dedmon. Centers have done well against Charlotte, and he's been getting decent enough minutes, and he shot terribly last time out. He's still almost mid-value at this price, so I think he's just underpriced and a solid play today. Really like Cody Zeller. Same game. Atlanta has actually been the worse than even Minnesota against centers the last few weeks. And he seems to have the most consistent minutes, for pretty much getting about 25. Should have a good shot at a double-double here. Then there's the other Milwaukee pieces: Ilyasova, Wes Matthews, Pat Connaughton, and the what's his name? The point guard I was just telling you about that I got my eye on. Look the brother up.
Shit, all right then.
Frank Mason the third. If we get word that he's starting, that'd be glorious. I'd go heavy. But if we don't, we're not even sure how much time he'd get. But it looks like he is on the roster, and he's the only real point guard on the roster at this point. So he may just get some backup time because George Hill is out as well. Others, I think you can still kind of take shots on Cody Martin out of Charlotte, McDaniel out of Charlotte, Willie Hernan-Gomez. But it's going to be Dedmon, Zeller, and then the Milwaukee stuff for me. And I also do like Jordan Clarkson at 42. He's under.
Yeah, I do like Clarkson for tournaments. See, I had a little bit of a different take for the Atlanta-Charlotte game, so I'm glad because I wanted to go kind of game by game with you to a degree anyway. But both of these teams like to play small. And their small ball lineups consist of P.J. Washington playing 5 for them and John Collins playing 5 for Atlanta. They like to do that. That's how they find minutes for Cam Reddish at the 3 alongside Trae Young, Herter, DeAndre Hunter. And it's the same situation with Charlotte. They like to play Bridges at the 4 when they can. Get away with, we've seen them refuse to play Zeller and Biyombo and these guys unless they really have to. So with that said, I was kind of more interested in the P.J. Washingtons, the Miles Bridges, the Cam Reddishes, the DeAndre Hunters, because I just feel like they're going to go that route. I know you'd mentioned Dedmon and Zeller, and this is a smash spot for both of them. This is a situation where bigs dominate, but I was a little reluctant to go heavy on them or play them at all, really, or make them priorities, because I think I'm just a little bit more into the P.J. Washingtons in that mid-tier section of it, because I just think the teams like to go balanced in that way. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts. in these two sucker freakers. Like, do you still have interest? What do you have interest in more, the small ball lineups, or do you really like the idea of grabbing the value and low owned value? I will say on Zeller and Dedmon, because I think most are anticipating what I'm anticipating, which will leave these guys lower owned.
So, Houston's the number one team you go small against, and Zeller got 27 minutes in a close game. Like, yes, it's a back-to-back, but I think they're going to play him about that, unless foul trouble strikes or something like that. You know what I mean? And just because you have Zeller on the court doesn't mean you're not really going small, because the rest of the team is, Bridges, PJ Washington, who's really like 4, Rozier Graham. But they don't really, Charlotte doesn't really have a ton of guys to go small with at this point. Like, the Martin brothers are really like 3s and 4s. McDaniels is like a 3 and a 4. Like, all they have is Rozier, Graham, and then a bunch of forwards. So, like, I think they're going to kind of do what they've been doing. I don't think Zeller loses out on any minutes. And then Atlanta, that one's a little trickier. Who is everybody available? Bembry's been out. Yeah, so them, like, Dedmon is more of a flyer, like, I just think if he does get the minutes and the usage he's been getting, he'll exceed his price today. But I'm not positive he'll get those minutes, because, they could go with Collins at the 5 and match up fine with Zeller and then, do the small thing. So Zeller I'm pretty firm on. Dedmon is more of a low-owned value flyer for me.
Sure enough. Fair enough. I'll be having a lot more PJ Washington and kind of going that route, but I'm getting some Zeller, so it's not like I'm not getting any. It's not hard to reach him. Like I said, not a lot of these guys project all that well. I guess I'm just a little nervous about the minutes we see. What about from the while we're on the topic, so talk to me about the players that you have the most interest in from the Charlotte Atlanta game.
Okay. Most interest, Charlotte, Atlanta. Well, obviously Trae Young on the Atlanta side. After him, I guess it would be like a DeAndre Hunter, one of those kind of stretch guys that has just been getting very good minutes. I do like Reddish and Herter, all the time as well, but I don't know. Like, we just, Charlotte's terrible at rebounding. Hunter's either going to be the 3 or the 4. I think he's more of a chance for like 10 rebounds, which it does often. So it's Trae Young, Hunter. I'm like cool with Collins, but I don't like his price. Like I said, I do like Dedmon as well. Reddish and Herter, although are fine, especially Reddish, cheap price on DK, but they're the ones I'll probably have least, and I'm not really that into anything on their bench.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, again, I think we'll see increased ownership, and I'm with you. Like I said, with the small ball lineup, obviously Trae Young as a stud is a guy I want to be able to have some exposure to, just because he has the ceiling to just break this slate. But it's really those mid tier guys, like you said in Atlanta, the DeAndre Hunters. Cam Reddish is more of a risk now that his price is elevated, but the small ball lineup would lead to him getting more time. Like you said, Hunters, and on the Milwaukee side, the Miles Bridges, PJ Washington's, all that. So I'm in a similar page. Let's move on to the next one. We still got over 30 minutes before we get to lock. So, Nation, get those questions ready. If you have them, we'll go ahead and address them. Hit the like button if you haven't hit it already. Paulie, we'll start with the Toronto-Utah game. Well, you know what? Let's go to the Milwaukee game, actually. It doesn't matter. They both start at the same time. But let's talk about Milwaukee. I know we talked about some of the potential Milwaukee players, but how interested in you in this game relative to the others? How interested in you in Denver? And which spots of Denver are you planning on targeting?
Okay. I don't know if it's on my end, but your volume dropped like significantly. So I don't know if like the listeners are experiencing that or not.
There was a brief portion where your audio cut out for a little bit, and
yeah,
it was a little weird. But Nation, let us know. Let us
Okay.
know how the audio is. We'll get back to you. 7 Styles.
All right. All right. So Denver, Milwaukee, and you said the Denver side first.
Whichever one you want. Just as a whole of the game. Like, you
All
know,
right.
you do dirties. It's your world, Squirrel. I'm just trying to get
So,
a nut. You know what I mean?
well, the Milwaukee side is like a whole different discussion, right? Like Denver, um, Denver's tough. Like, I don't think I get much, and it's weird because, you could have multiple Suns yesterday. I don't think I want much more than 2 Nuggets. Like, I think this game will play slower. Like, I think Milwaukee could play really fast if pushed that way, or very slow. And I think they're kind of gonna do what the opposition does. So I expect this game to be much slower than what last night's Phoenix Suns and Milwaukee game was. So like Murray and Jokic, like Murray's my favorite. I wouldn't get too crazy heavy on Murray without having a bunch of Barton as a hedge. I don't like them together. I think like one has the hot day and gets a little extra usage or minutes, and it takes away directly from the other. So it's like one of them. You could even really include Gary Harris, like one of those 3, and I prefer Murray to either of those 2. Not significantly, but that's the one I prefer. And then it just makes sense to pair with the Jokic or a Millsap. And if you think the game's kind of close, then that's kind of as far as it goes. If you think more Denver kind of blows them out, I don't mind taking a shot on like a Michael Porter today. Even Torrey Craig, whose like minutes are sporadic, like they do like making him like a shadow on certain players some days. I wouldn't be shocked if they just said you guard Middleton and shut him down. But that's like 2% type stuff. Like I think the game will be close. Vegas has it, I think, around 5. At least that's what it was last time I looked. Like it's like one of the 3 guards with one of the 2 bigs. That's as far as I want to go from the Denver side. Milwaukee, though, like everyone's just way too cheap. I think you can get exposure a lot of different ways with Milwaukee. Middleton, I think, is a guy you play 80 or 100%. Like I don't really see any way around. I do like DiVincenzo. I just think he gets too much minutes and usage to not really get there, but you don't have to play him. Like I think, there's a world where he shoots poorly and, Wes Matthews is the guy you wanted, or Connaughton or Sterling Brown or Mark Williams, but it's like definitely Middleton, and then I think you could have up to like 3 others: Ilyasova, Brook Lopez, DiVincenzo, 2 other guards and a big. But at this point, I would have to say that DiVincenzo, Brook Lopez, Mark Williams, and Pat Connaughton would kind of be my favorites. But like Ilyasova and Wes Matthews aren't very far behind.
Let's talk about Ilyasova for a second. Just because yesterday he was min price, played 15 minutes, got some rebounds, didn't take any shots. Obviously with Bledsoe out, we anticipate, say he got those 15 minutes again, I would think he would take some shots this time, being that Bledsoe's out of the picture. How many minutes do you think Ilyasova plays? Because I'm interested from an ownership perspective. I don't think anybody, his price is up to 4.6 on DraftKings. I really don't think anyone's going to go there. But even looking at the numbers, granted, it's been a small sample for the season with Middleton and Bledsoe both out. But even the limited numbers that we did see showed Ilyasova as a main benefactor at 20.3, a usage rate of 20.3 with a 1.41 fantasy points per minute. Talk to me about how much you actually are willing to take shots on Illy.
So, like, the main difference is that Marvin Williams is now there, and they seem to like it, right?
Which is, I don't get that, but yes.
Yeah, I know. The guy barely could get minutes in Charlotte, and now he comes to the best team, and
he's playing.
He's getting them, but maybe that's why Charlotte sucks. I don't know. But so it's a back-to-back, which we don't like for Ilyasova, in altitude, But this would be a team you'd think they would need him more for. You know what I mean? So, like, It's a 3-game slate, so don't take like me saying 35-40% is like I like him a lot, but that's not really that high of an exposure on a 3-game slate. You know what I mean? Like that's 3 out of 10 teams to, 3 or 4 out of 10. And like I don't think there's any way that he doesn't play at all. You know what I mean? And he can really do a lot in a very short amount of time with upside of maybe gets 25 minutes and a ton of usage at low ownership. So he seems like a guy, that like if you're building one team, it'd be really hard to roster. But that's why we do MMA. And even with 10, I'd be willing to throw him on 3 or 4. And if he sucks, still got 6 other teams that are live. You know what I mean? But he has that low ownership point per minute upside that, on this kind of slate could go a long way for you. So I think he's worth about 30 to 40.
I agree, and again, I do like the fact that because he burned so many people yesterday, I think now that his price has increased on DraftKings, I think people are going to be a little reluctant to click his name. And it is different. It is a different situation. They might end up needing to play Marvin Williams alongside Ersan Ilyasova. You do have, especially if things get south for Brolo. I know they got Robin Lopez, they got guys. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible. And if Marvin Williams ain't getting it done on offense, I think they recognize, like as far as offensive weapons, Ilyasova is not actually not that far down that list on a slate like today with situations the way they are. So I agree with you on that. Holla at a PM. Talk to me about the final game, Toronto, Utah. Again, like I speculate this game has a little bit of lower ownership outside of maybe some like Serge Ibaka, who I expect to be pretty popular with Gasol out. But Powell's price has increased. On FanDuel, he'll be popular. On DraftKings, I think people may be reluctant to click his name over Will Barton at $6K, $800 cheaper. Talk to me about Toronto, Utah, son.
So, of late, Utah has been really bad against guards, right? They've actually like improved significantly against the bigs, right? But kind of figured that was, going to correct itself with who Gobert is, right? So from the Toronto side, like I love Powell. I don't care which site, which price. Like he's, getting usage of a 10K guy. Shot volume. So, I'm just going to keep going there as long as, now that Van Fleet's already ruled out. Like Kyle Lowry, I think he'll be very low on both sites. So, like, he's just as appealing. And I think you can play them together because they can correlate. So, Lowry's going to get his assists, and, some of them will come off of 3-pointers or transition plays through Powell. Like Siakam, like him more than Ibaka, ownership and just, raw point wise. And then, I think like a guy like OG Anunoby, will get very low ownership because his price is still like through the roof. And it wasn't long ago that he was dropping 60s and 40s. And like, I know that was when Powell missed, but, he's going to be out there and he can take a lot of threes. Like he'll be very low owned. He's a really smart pivot off of Powell, or played together. Just one of the lower owned guys that will get by far the most minutes for his ownership. So I think you could take a stab there if you wanted to. After that, I'm not really looking to play like Terrence Davis or Matt Thomas or any stuff like that. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson's all right, but I don't know how many minutes we can project him for with the Ibaka back. Like it's Powell, Lowry, Siakam. Those are the 3 I really like. And then I do think there's like merit to getting like 20% OG, just forcing that because of his ownership versus his upside.
And because of his name. I mean, the dude's name is OG. It doesn't get any more gangster than that, right? Literally.
That's a very good point.
All right, Nation. I'm going to pop into the chat in just a second, and we'll try to field some of your questions. Just going to finish off handling some of these projections real quick. But I'll pop up in there. We got about 20-something minutes to lock. I'm going to scroll up a little bit so I don't miss some of these. Dre Russell says, don't sleep on Kyle Korver. Any comments on Mr. Korver? It's not the worst take just because of how thin they are. I mean, he's another guy that could end up just shooting a ton.
No. I just don't think they'll play him all that much. Like, Kyle Korver has one job, and that is to hit threes in the playoffs when teams, are doubling Giannis, and I just don't see them giving him all that much run because they'll punt the game if it gets to that point where they need to have him play a ton of minutes and take a ton of shots. Like, they can afford to lose a lot of games right now. They got a comfortable, so I don't see that happening. Like, I would actually have preferred him in a game like against the Lakers 2 games ago, where maybe they go into like their playoff rotations and we see that, but not in this game. They're not gonna, take a risk on getting him hurt and push him more than, because they just want him for 10 to 16 minutes shooting threes off the bench in the playoffs.
Sure enough. Dwayne James says, "What up, boys? CK and Paulie, 8Ds are the true OGs of DFS. Get that straight. Everyone love the content, boys. We appreciate you, Dwayne. We appreciate you, man. Thanks for the kind words. Hit that like button if you haven't already. My man Dwayne James just told you why. Our boy Abra says, DKGPP, Bogdanovich, Barton, Herter. Which one?
Bogdanovich, Barton, or Herter?
Bogdanovich. I would say Barton, but I don't mind Bogdanovich. He's been playing phenomenally. Dwayne James says, on these small slates, always weird shit happens. You want to get off all the chalk because it rarely goes well on a 3-gamer. What are your thoughts on that, man? I know, like I'm with you in the boat of like Middleton. To me, it's either 80% and leave some room without him, or just go 100 and just expect him to do his thing. But obviously, there is merit to the chalk busting. But I think we have to look at the probability of the chalk busting to really make an educated decision on whether to go under or overweight. And I'm assuming that for you, the probability is just like low that he's going to really bust to a point where it hurts you. Otherwise, I would think that you'd be willing to go very underweight.
So, like, when you look just like even in his price range, right? Like, there's just not many guys there that are like pivots. You know what I mean? It's like Donovan Mitchell and, I guess Rudy Gobert at a different position, a utility. He's kind of like on an island by himself there. The guys that are like, in the low 6s, unless he duds. And like, what's a dud for Middleton today? Like, even if they're getting blown out, like, he could have like, 30 DraftKings points by halftime and they're losing 60-40. It's like, I don't, if it was a bigger slate, I'd be really into this idea because they could get blown out. They could just play really slow, but there's just not many guys that I genuinely think are going to like even out Ross score him from like 6,000 and up. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's just not that many pivots off. Like, I don't think, I don't really like going 100% with anything in MMA. I think it kind of defeats the purpose. So I'm really leaning towards that 80. You know what I mean? And I have a lot of respect for the guys that will go less. You know what I mean? Because if you're right, you will certainly like benefit today. It's just like, they're so shorthanded that, even if they do get smoked and he only plays 25 minutes, he may still get you like a 35-40 and you needed him. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of need him to get injured or ejected in the first half for that to like really pay off. And like, that's just, you don't like predict or plan for that. That, happens and you adjust or react or accept. But I don't think I'd go the full 100 now that I'm like talking this out. Like, there are some things, and there are a few guys out there that you could have, especially in a DraftKings lineup. I need to look at FanDuel, like how the position ranks, which we can do right now. I guess we got time. Like, on FanDuel, it's not even so much about like other players. It's just that position specifically. And like, I only have one. Oh, he's shooting guard. Never mind. Let's see how many shooting guards. And my thing is broken.
Holla.
1 second. Oh, Frank Mason added to the player pool. I guess he is around.
Frank Mason.
Yeah, 3.84 fantasy point projection.
Holla.
Yeah. Holla. Back. All right, so Siakam, Bojan, Miles Bridges. I'm sorry, this is small. Shooting guard. So, like, reasonable options besides Middleton: DiVincenzo, Herder, Norm Powell, Devontae Graham, Donnie Mitchell, Jordan Clarkson. So with FanDuel, I think there's merit to fading him. He's 7K there, where you like Norm Powell at 5.5 could certainly outpoint per dollar him. So could Devontae Graham, and so could like the value plays. Like if Pat Connaughton 10x's, right, and they do get blown out, the backups get more run, right, along with one of Powell, Devontae Graham, Jordan Clarkson kind of going off and just being better than him, or DiVincenzo. Like you could fade him on FanDuel and play, the value with whichever one guy you think is the better play there, right? So it's feasible on either side to not have him. If Denver was playing a lot better, I'd be maybe more inclined to it. I just, Vegas. You still seeing a line of 5, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm a little like that line is kind of like making me think it's going to be closer because I thought the line would be like 8-10 once Bledsoe and dude got ruled out. Yeah, point guard.
Yeah, well, it's like you said, man. They have not been very good.
No, I know they've been terrible.
Exactly like you said. They've been not. They have sucked. They have sucked long. They have sucked hard. That's just the That's just the truth. On to the next ones. Boy Arizona Drama says Young or Jokic for a spend up.
So I haven't looked at ownership. I'm gonna assume that Young is projected to be like really popular, and Dragic Jokic popular too, but not as close. But check that for me real quick.
So according to one source, it's the opposite around. Matter of fact, this source updated and they have Trae Young way down the list. 28%, not like crazy low, but Jokic they have at 36, the third highest owned on the slate. I don't know how much I agree with that, but maybe because Trae Young has had 2 bad games in a row because he's been sick. That could have something to do with it, but I would agree with you. I think most people would be likely to play Trae Young over Jokic, but according to ownership projections, they do have Jokic higher. 707s.
Okay. I prefer Trae Young by a lot.
I do too. For what it's worth. Like long and hard style. I prefer Trae Young. Arizona Drama, another question. Who eats the most with Bledsoe and Giannis ruled out besides Middleton, Pat, Wesley, or Dante DiVincenzo? The numbers show Dante. Any input on that, Paulie?
Yeah, I would say Dante, then Connaughton.
Moose Ruse, 5,300 utility DK. Who would you guys play?
All right.
53 hundo. Dundo.
53 at utility. That would be. I like Deontay.
There you go. It'd be low owned for sure. Oh shit! What was the name? I hate when I go to do something.
I like sell too. I mean, I think it's okay to leave 400 on the table today.
Dick Bandits. Let me just make some adjustments to Lowry, and I will move on to the next on to the next one. All right, here we go. Oh, okay. They asked them questions back when we were having the audio concerns. Holla. Dwayne James says, wouldn't be picking mids now. Super Chalk Nuggets will just take mids out of the game. Oh, Middleton, he means. We'll take Middleton out of the game and let someone else beat them. Certainly possible. Collins or Siakam? Tough to decide.
Collins or Siakam? Siakam.
Siakam. I would agree with that one. Arizona Drama. Collins just smashed, but he got that shoulder injury. I'm not worried about the injury. I just think that Siakam would be lower owned, to be honest. Let's see what else we get. Jameis Boyce. I'm not a big game log guy, but Paul Millsap has some very good history against the Bucks. Any interest in Paul Millsap?
A little. I would have rather Giannis been there, but yeah, he doesn't even need a ton of time to do well. He's fine. I wouldn't pair him with Jokic. I'd want one or the other, but I'm more interested in the guards.
The guards, long style. Let me upload it. We got about 16 minutes to Lock Nation. If you have questions, keep asking them. We'll keep pumping them out. In the meantime, I'm updating the projections, which means the cheat sheet is also being updated. Paul, you did a Core Plays article today, right?
Yeah,
Core Plays article at WiseTake.com for those who are subscribed. The Go Paulie D does that. Oh, I didn't look. I was just making sure. I didn't tell them to look for it.
I thought you were saying I can't.
No. I just didn't have a chance to make sure it was up. But I know you said you were going to do one, so I figured you did. So if you're subscribed to WiseTake.com, go check out Paulie's Kizor. The cheat sheets are updating as I update the projections, which for now I think are pretty updated. I'm just making some changes as I go, seeing what teams we have. If you have access to WiseTake.com. You know what I'm saying? If not, just hit the like button, put a smile on your face, and let's rock this. Thoughts on Cody? This is from James Sanchez. Thoughts on Cody Zeller and Pat Connaughton?
Thoughts on Cody Zeller and Pat Connaughton?
Yes,
how do they?
I think he just wants your opinion on the two players.
I really like both of them. Cody Zeller is in my core article, and Pat Connaughton is in it too, not the core section, but I do like him as well.
Yeah, Connaughton is in a good spot. There's no doubt. I guess the reason I'm not getting a ton of him right now, and to be honest, that's only because I don't think I need him. Only because I'm not that big on the studs.
Yeah, you might not need the value. I was going to ask you if you preferred him over Wes Matthews.
I do. I do prefer him over Wes Matthews, just because we know what Wes is. He's never going to be more than just when he's open, he's going to take a shot. Maybe he'll get some steals because he plays some defense. But Connaughton, we know, he has the abilities to grab 10 boards if he gets the minutes and situations like that. So I would say Connaughton if I had to pick one. But again, it's not even I think they're both fine for options. It's just I'm not really that into the studs, so I just wasn't getting them. So it's a weird deal. But I do think that I should probably give a little bit more attention to Connaughton than I'm currently giving. Just simply because he's shown us that on a point per minute average basis, if I'm willing to play to 15% Ilyasova, why wouldn't I want a little bit of Connaughton who is a little more active in their game plan? You know what I mean? Holla if you hear me. Show enough. Shit. All right then. So let me just make this little change and let me make this upload and have it redo the dirty. We got 13 minutes to Lock Nation. We are here to rock it out with you. So don't go nowhere. Hang out with us.
How much are you looking to play DiVincenzo?
That's a great question. I guess it depends on how much I'm willing to play Middleton, which I'm thinking about capping them somewhere around 70. To give me that 30% without them. But see, he's the one that I have a hard time seeing busting. Because if this game does go south, I still think he plays. You know what I'm saying? George Hill is missing and Bledsoe's missing. So it's not like he's a guy that's getting 30-something minutes a game. I just don't see him not playing 30 minutes at least today. Even if the game gets out of hand, even if the game gets ugly, I just don't see him not playing at least 30 minutes. Middleton is the one where I can easily see him finishing today with a 40, which on DraftKings just wouldn't be enough. So I think I kind of like DiVincenzo a little bit more, and that's just more about it's easier to play the guy that's cheap. If DiVincenzo gets 30 minutes and puts up a 25, that could probably hurt me less than if Chris Middleton gets me a 35 today at 7-6.
Yep.
Dirty burgers. But I guess the more we talk about it, and you know me, bro, I'm not afraid to play chalk. You know me. If anything, that's been a problem in my game recently. But I'm a little reluctant on a 3-game slate to go 100% because it'll do a little bit more for us if it does turn down. Even if I cap them at 70 each, that 30% where I don't have those guys, that could end up being end up taking us a decent way if it's right. But at the same time, probability is bro. See, if Denver, this is a horrible spot for Milwaukee. It's a back-to-back. They've been on the road. No Giannis, no Bledsoe. It's a 4-6 for this team. They're in Denver, in the altitude. The only reason that I'm not more gung-ho about going underweight is, like you said, Denver's been ass. They barely beat Charlotte. They've just sucked. They've just really sucked. But if I was going to bet on this game, there's no doubt I'd be betting on Denver. I think 5.5 is way too low. But, hey, Denver sucked. They've been terrible. That's just the truth. sucking on that hard and long. Mafia. Shit. All right, back to the questions. Back to the questions. How much Pat Connaughton will you guys have? I'm not gonna have too much. Paulie, what about you? Where are you at?
Yeah, not a ton. You just don't really need them. There's not enough studs to like force you into all that value. Right now, like I'm struggling to even get a lot of DiVincenzo, to be honest. Like, that crunch, I just got 0.
Wow.
I was just going to increase that because I do like them, but.
So I'm assuming you got a lot of the mid tier guys projected well, right? If it's going down like 8 and shit. Shit, son. Going down dirty style up in here. Shit. Global exposure.
I mean, like, on FanDuel, it's even crazier. Like, you just don't need it. It's like the Stars and Scrubs site, or as it is, and like, there's just no one that expensive.
Not for nothing, but like your point on Middleton, even though Middleton's price is lower on FanDuel, I agree with you that may be where it made a little bit more sense to go underweight. It's easier to make that decision because say Middleton even goes for 40, which is roughly 6x, like 42 is 6x, but you know what I mean, on FanDuel. But Norman Powell's 5.5. Say he also went for 40, and so then you take DiVincenzo. Say he goes for 35. You really didn't need Middleton at that point. You just didn't need him. And at that point, the combination of him and DiVincenzo was beat by Powell and DiVincenzo. So just going back to, I know something you already said, like that's like something that kind of struck to me when you said it. I'm like, you know what? That is a really good point. Like it's not necessarily on DraftKings. That's where it's difficult because guys can have those guys and still have Middleton. You know what I'm saying? So if he's the third best play, other people will find a way to get him in. Whereas on FanDuel, he just didn't make the cut, or he could have actually held you back if anything. I'll say that because you brought the point up, and I'm like, you know what? Shit, that makes some sense, man. Shit.
And like, if they do get smoked, like DiVincenzo's probably going to still play a ton of minutes. Middleton's the one, him and Lopez, they could take off.
Right. Agreed. I got the need for speed, and I agreed. Come on, Larry, give me more of you. 8 minutes to lock, nation. 8 minutes to lock. Do the dirty. 45. Larry. Okay, where are we at here? Shit, right then. Shit. Makes it. How much Zeller are you actually playing? I know you mentioned he's your core article, but how much are you actually going to play of him? You intend to?
45%.
45 up in here. Up in here. How much Ibaka are you playing?
40%. And that's a play I don't even really like.
Right? He sounded reluctant as shit to say. He sounded so disappointed to say it too. Like 40%. 40%, I guess. This fucker. Shit, alright then, shit. Power forward is a straight wasteland, bro. It's ugly. I mean, why not take a shot on Millsap and Illy and all these guys? Why not? It's fucking hideous over there. It's despicable.
Yep. Who do you have more exposure to? Ilyasova or Marv Williams?
Ilyasova. I'm not even gonna play Marv. Like, I'm just not. I just don't like.
At all?
Nah, because I just don't see a ceiling. Like, I'm not seeing anything from him, and I've never really seen much from him.
Yeah, at his price, you really.
What is he? 5K?
What is he
like 5K? Like, there's no way I'm playing him over PJ Washington or Miles Bridges. Either one of those dudes. Just can't do it. If he was still 3K, then yeah, obviously it's a different discussion. Then I wouldn't be on my knees as hard either, though. Are you playing Millsap?
Yeah, I got some. Give me a minute and I'll tell you.
Freaking mode.
Comma separated.
Yeah.
6 minutes of lock
That's
time.
right.
Lockdown, baby.
Right. Getting dirty. Getting dirty with the nation. Getting dirty. That's what we do. We getting dirty. Damn, I got 2 of them too many in this one.
Yeah.
Shit.
Dean.
Damn, shit. Let's go here. Alright, saving the CSV. 5 minutes to lock, nation. Saving the CSV, getting something up. I'm going to make some changes, but I want to make sure I got something up. Pro tip, get something up anyway. Just put some shit up. You don't want to end up with your D and your H, like we always say.
Yep.
You don't want to end up
That's
with
for
the D
sure.
and the H. Definitely not.
Got your gun, so it's not on your
That's
H.
That's it. Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Alright, let me do this crunch, and then I can give you that Millsap answer and anything else you want to
Give me
know.
that gushy stuff. That gushy, that nasty. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. You know how it goes in the street. Scrizzles in the scrizzles.
I'll ask you this question: what did you decide on Middleton and DiVincenzo, like as a cap?
Middleton 75, DiVincenzo 50.
That's
Even though that's backwards from like what I really like, but that's where I'm at, and I think I'm gonna check.
You gotta love it when you say it out loud, and you're like, "All right, yeah, it's backwards." So, well, it's what it is.
Yeah.
Gotta love when that happens. How much Clarkson are you playing? He's a guy that like I'm sneakily getting a lot of that I didn't even realize, and I like him. I like him, but like how much?
I
you know,
get
like
it. Yeah.
that's a lot of like right there.
Yeah. I do get it, because there's just not much else to really do. But I don't know, Pimp.
I
Like,
feel you.
yeah, I like him. I'm gonna have like 55% of him. Just the price is too cheap.
It is too cheap.
Like you don't even have to adjust his shit. You get a lot.
It is too cheap. I agree with that. I think this final crunch is where I'm gonna leave things, and I'm just gonna let it rock. If it finishes, it did finish. Well, look at that. Look at that. Would you look at that, ladies and gentlemen?
Oh, would you look at that?
Jeez. We came through in the clutch. I love it. You love to see it. That's one that I've been hearing a lot lately. I don't know why, but I feel like that's like something everybody is saying all of a sudden. You love to see it or whatever. It's like, actually, no, I don't. You know what I love to see? Some money in my account, son. That's what I love to see. Like to see some wins, pimp. Let's get some wins, pimp. We got 3 minutes to lock, nation. Hopefully you are doing thy dirty to that neighbor before the neighbor does the 30 to you. Rule of thumb. All right, I think I'm in. I'm gonna go back to the questions. Moose Roos, do you like Conley any?
Not much, no.
I have some Conley. It's not even that I really like him. It's more that just a lack of options and not wanting to be 100% on such and such. So I did end up with like 35% Conley, which sounds like a lot, but on a 3-game slate, it's actually not that high. Jamal Murray or Powell, DraftKings GPP from my boy Abra.
Ooh, Powell, but I'd try to have both of those in my lineup if I was only building one.
Juice says, is Bacon active? I'm sure he is. I just don't know if they plan on playing him. Right?
Yeah, I think he is.
Abra, Jamal Murray and Trae Young or Siakam and Lowry?
Jamal Murray and Trae Young or Siakam and Lowry? Murray and Young.
Last question with 1 minute left to lock. Marvin is 3,500 on FanDuel. Any interest in him there? Marvin Williams, he's 35 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I do a little bit, but similar to Connaughton, I just found myself not really needing him. Like, I got a lot of lineups there with Jokic and Middleton and Trae Young, and didn't even need to go that deep in the value. So, he's fine, but I don't see where you need a lot of him.
Agreed. That's going to do it, Nation. We're about a few seconds here from lock. So at this point, hopefully you got your teams ready and you're ready to do dirties. Our content's fully updated out, ready to rock. We got our teams built. I don't even know totally what I have, but you know what? It's a 3-game slate, and I don't give a fuck as long as I'll find out what I have as we start to sweat, right? Because at the end of the day, bro, that's one thing about MME that really like you have to get used to is your sweat is different. You don't really start sweating. You don't really know what you're rooting for. You might think, I got 60% of such and such player. I'm rooting for him. You might start off thinking that way. But by the end of the night, you may be rooting for a guy you have 10% of because he's on all your best teams. And so at the end of the day, it's wild. But luckily, after we sweat out the first game, which is now at 7:30, the other two games both start at 9, so it should be a lot of fun. We're going to get out of here. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Hopefully, we get a little bit of a better slate. We'll be doing the early look as well as the Y stream, so come check us out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Please hit that like button on your way out. For Paulie D, for myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, as always, good luck.